Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm talking about the 10 books that I read in July, August, and September. There's gonna be a time when I can read 10 books a month, but it's not right now, so let's just get started. So I'm pretty sure I read 4 books in July, and then I think I only read either 2 or 3 in August, and then 2 or 3 in September. First book that I read is The Couple Next Door by Lapina. I gave that 5 stars. It's actually one of the first like mysteries that I have read this year. It's about a couple and they are at a dinner party with another couple. I actually think they live in like a duplex kind of style house, and they just literally go right over to like they're like apartment B, they just go right over to apartment A, so they literally are joined by a wall. And while they're there, their daughter is kidnapped, and it's kind of like this mystery because the couple has set up this kind of scheduling system to go back and forth like every hour or something. It might even be shorter time increment, and in those time increments someone comes into their home and kidnaps their daughter. And it's like a huge mystery because they're in such a close space. The backyard, you can see right into the backyard. The garages are connected. I thought it read really quickly, and I liked it so much that I picked up another Lapina in the same month. I really thought it was interesting, kind of just like the combination of all of the stories and all of the characters coming together. I thought it was really juicy. It's just so quick to read. I don't read too many mystery thrillers, so I'm not sure in comparison to like other ones if it would be that great, but I thought it was really good. This book that I read is Frankenstein and Cleopatra by Coco, Melores. I'm pretty sure I gave that 4.5, if not 5 stars. This is a good one. This is one that's kind of like a little bit more popular, or I think I saw it more so on Instagram. It's about this couple, Frank and Cleo. They have a bit of an age gap. I think it's like a pretty solid like 10 or 15 year age gap. She's closer in age to his younger half sister, who's 18, and I think he might be almost 40. That's why it's so important to do a wrap up in the month after you read it, because I really feel like the bigger, greater details that I can't remember. I just remember enjoying it. I thought it was just a little bit choppy. There was a lot of point of views of different characters, and I think some of them fell flat. We definitely, visited more characters more than the other, but I think that I liked it because I felt like it was realistic. It wasn't this, fairy tale happy ending. I think that based on what both of the characters brought to the table and what they were dealing with, like the most realistic ending happened, if that makes sense, and I can appreciate that in a book. I'm pretty sure I gave that 4 stars. Next book that I read is This Is a Pleasure by Gatskill. This is like a short story novella. I think it's like 80 pages, maybe 100 pages, and this is about a man and a woman, and they are friends, like long-term friends at work, and this man is I'm not actually sure if he's on trial, but I know that he is like gotten in trouble for behaving inappropriately and basically harassing women. And we were kind of listening to the dialogue back and forth about the woman who is his friend, who he's not ever crossed the line. She really highly regards him, thinks he's funny, and then this man who is kind of justifying it, and he also has a wife and a child. And it's really more so a discussion of being friends with someone who kind of can do something that's really atrocious, and how does that impact you as a person? Was there warning signs? Did I miss something? Did I excuse that behavior, or did I miss something? And so I thought it was really interesting. I would have liked it to be longer from what I can remember, because it is so short that I kind of feel like I can't say a lot because I'll say the entire story. I think I gave it 3 stars. I don't have like a big memory about it, but I remember it being pretty interesting. So the second Lapina that I picked up is Not a Happy Family. This one was pretty good. I actually thought that the pacing was even faster than The Couple Next Door, but I had to give this one a 4-star because the killer was so obvious. But first of all, let me say the synopsis. So it is about an older couple, and they live on this like big estate, this very beautiful house in upstate New York, and they have 3 kids, and they have 2 daughters and a son. First daughter, I think she's the oldest, and she's very conservative, went to like medical school, kind of like did everything right, and she kind of does this so as to be favored by her parents. Like, it's very obvious. She like says it to her husband and everything like that. And then there is the son, who I'm pretty sure is the middle. It's either she's the oldest or he's the oldest, and he is the only son, so he has a lot of pressure because, you know, the family in itself, I think, is more conservative, and so he's like, I'm the heir, I'm the one that's gonna have to inherit everything. I need to make sure that I can be there. And then they have a younger daughter, and she is just, flying by the seat of her pants. Like, she does not care, she's not invested, she's an artist, she lives in a different city, and they have an interaction, and then the parents of these 3 kids die, and it's kind of like this investigation as to what happened, because they were all kind of set to inherit a large inheritance, I guess, large enough that they would, murder their parents. And it was really good. There was a lot of side stories that kind of intertwine. The only thing is that I felt as though the killer was so obvious. And this is like, coming from someone who doesn't read really mysteries or thrillers, but it was just because they never really focused on the character. So it was just like, okay, well, I bet it's gonna be this character, like it's supposed to be a surprise. But I still gave 4 stars because I really like Sherry Lapina as a writer, and I definitely need to pick up some more of her work. So just like everyone else, I was able to actually listen to the audiobook of I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette Mccurdy. I really like the practice of not rating memoirs, or really just memoirs, but if I could, I would give it 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I think that for me, when like iCarly was on in Sam and Cat, I was young. I was like 8 or 9 years old. I remember I would come home and watch it before like going back out to Sunday school, and I was young. And so it was really crazy and difficult to hear, because I was a child myself, and I didn't know. You would never imagine that any of that was occurring or going on, because it was a show, and I really liked iCarly. I mean, I like remember it as a piece of my childhood, like coming home and watching it. And so to kind of hear about some of the things and even how she became involved with the show is just really kind of like jaw-dropping, definitely an emotionally moving book. I've heard that some people felt like there was kind of like some lapses in the time, but I think that it kind of just speaks to the experience that she probably had, where to me, I could understand why there might have been these lapses, because it seemed as though there was parts of where she kind of was checking out. And when you don't have that memory, and it's like forced down because of trauma, I mean, it's like. And so that was definitely 5 stars, very insightful. The next book that I read was Vladimir by Julia May Jones. I gave this one 4 stars, maybe 4.5. There was a reason why it wasn't a 5-star for me, but it followed a woman who was a professor at a small kind of liberal arts college, and she's also an author, and her husband, who I'm pretty sure was an author as well, and they have an open relationship that's been their dynamic for years, even before her like mid-20s daughter was born. So it's been their dynamic for several years, even as their relationship changed and grew, and even as their daughter grew up. They've been in an open relationship, and it's always been that understanding for both of them. They both saw other people, and they were each other's primary partner, husband and wife, but he is on trial because of a lot of allegations of misconduct and assaults from very young women, like women that he teaches in the college. And it's kind of, the wife is kind of rectifying, is this true? Is this, well, it's true because she knows that this happened, because she is in, you know, an agreement with him. That's their agreement. But she's like, is that really what happened? Is that really the perspective that they take? So that's one thing that she's kind of battling. But then there is this new youngish professor named Vladimir, who she's taken a liking to. She's says many times that she's obsessed with him. I really don't think it was obsession. I think it was just, there was a lot of shame in this book, and I think that it was so prevalent from, you know, our main character's opinion. Everything that she did was kind of followed by shame. What will other people think? How do I think about myself? And she really kind of had this really odd relationship with her husband, like the way that she felt about him. But even at the very end, like, what is he gonna think? She was very shameful, and I think a lot of it kind of amounted up to like her kind of having like these really big like ideas of what she thought, even though from the reader's perspective it was like, no, I don't really think that, you know, it's coming off like that. It doesn't really seem like you're obsessed. I think you just kind of have a crush. But without giving too many spoilers, I think that I don't know, I kind of just like the way that it approached that topic. Even in the end, just at the very end when things happen, our main character was really obsessed and like really intrigued by Vladimir's writing, because he was also an author. But at the end of everything, when everything was said and done and she was able to kind of read his work, or I think it was like the literary criticism was that it was kind of like boring. And it was like, to me, it's like, wow, you know, once the lens is no longer focused on someone in such a way, they may or may not be actually that great. And I think that that was kind of the entire undertone of the book. I don't actually know if Vladimir was that great. I think that she had a crush on him, and I think that was it. And I think that the way that the book ended and the whole climax was like kind of like a cheap shot. Like, okay, I don't know, it just felt like, and then this happened, and then we start over. It just was like, okay, for the writing I felt like was really beautiful and well done, and then it was like, and now we're gonna start fresh with like this big thing that happened. And that was the only reason why I gave it a 5-star. Like, it was just like this dramatized climax to the story, and I was like, okay, but you know, sure, now we don't have to account for a couple of months that have happened, and they've had character growth that I think could have been well written, that I would have liked to see, but it was still really good. Next book that I read, which actually is going to be my second nonfiction, but I actually read 3 this month, is Heaven is Here by Stephanie Nielsen. This was a really interesting read for me. So I was just in the library at near my boyfriend's house, which is not my local library, even though I've done a lot of studying there before. And I was like, I really just want to stumble across a book, which like I do a lot at local bookstores. Like, you know, I'm just drawn in by the cover or the, you know, bookstore recommendation cards. But I was like, I just want something to catch my eye, and I was in like the health memoir section, and this caught my eye. I kind of like really didn't understand what it was going to be about, but I knew it was about a woman that was a burn victim and kind of like the care that she received in the hospital. And it was really a lot more than that. I gave it 5 stars. I mean, it's a memoir, so like I said, I don't rate memoirs, but so what happens is that it is about this woman, and she is a part of the Church of Latter-day Saints. And so that was interesting to me because I never read anything about Mormon people or the Mormon religion, and so that was kind of like this introduction into another religion that I personally don't know anything about. And so that was pretty neat to kind of read and listen about that. I'm sure that there are, you know, a lot of information to be learn about, good and bad, but like I said, I don't have any. That was kind of like my first sweep of information, learning about LDS and you know, from her perspective, it was neat to learn about. Obviously, I'm sure that there's other information, just like with any other religion or, you know, style of belief. But it was faith-based in a way because she leaned on her faith a lot. But the bigger story was, you know, she was in a plane accident or a plane crash. Her husband was in the process of earning his pilot's license. I'm not really sure how much, like how, you know, close he was to actually earning the license or not. But he was flying like smaller, like 2-passenger planes, and they just, you know, kind of randomly crashed. I'm sure it was mentioned. I actually cannot remember like what was, you know, happened, if it was a mechanical error or something like that. And they crashed like very close to their home. And they were both, you know, injured. The pilot's captain, I think, was, he was killed, and kind of just her story of recovery. And it was a big recovery. And just a lot of medical terminology that was kind of interesting to hear. I listened to this on audiobook. I started to read it at the library, and then I was invested, so I started listening to it on the audiobook. And she had massive burns, and, you know, just the road to recovery was very lengthy. She and her husband had 4 children, and you know, she didn't see them for like 6 months. They were all, you know, kind of displaced, you know, with different family, and her recovery was just extremely difficult. She was really in love with her life before her accident, and kind of, you know, it was like kind of taken from her, and to hear her perspective was really interesting. So I gave that 5 stars. I thought it was really interesting, and she lived in Utah, and I'll be going to Utah pretty soon. Not related. I didn't know that I was going to be going to Utah when I read it, but I will be, so it's going to be kind of neat. Maybe I'll see what she was talking about, different mountains and different scenery. This was definitely in September, which is The Weight of Blood by Tiffany D. Jackson. I think this actually might be the best book I've read this year so far. 5 stars. It is a Carrie retelling, and so if you know Carrie, or if you don't, the kind of basic plot is that it is this girl, and she lives at home with a single mother who is, you know, I don't know how to describe it, like churchy, like extremely religious, like, but in like a cult way, or like extremely religious in like a very toxic way. And she has telekinesis. She can move things with her mind, and so what her mom does is locks her in the closet and like locks her in there, and then she's, you know, bullied at school, all the things. And then through some circumstances or another, the prom is coming up. She's invited to the prom, and someone has this horrible prank and idea to like drop blood all over her after she wins prom queen. That's like the basic synopsis of Carrie, of any retelling. That's like the meat and cheese of it. And Tiffany D. Jackson put her foot in this. It was everything. It was everything and more. There's nothing that I don't want to share anything because it was so good. Every single part of it was like, wow. Like, that was the spin I wasn't expecting. Every single part, every single piece was so well thought out. I was like, the young adults are, you know, they get the good, because I'm pretty sure this is advertised as young adult. I was like, the young adults should be eating this up. This was excellent. I feel like it was extremely satisfying. There was a lot of different points that were hit, but I feel like it wasn't overdone. I feel like it was extremely well balanced out. The audiobook was an experience. I highly recommend the audiobook. If you're gonna buy an Audible credit, The Weight of Blood by Tiffany D. Jackson. They had the podcast, they had the cop cars and the sirens, they had the fire, they had all the different accents. It was a serve on Tiffany G. Jackson's behalf. It was excellent. It was incredible. I'm pretty sure this is the best book I've read all year. It was so good. This audiobook was like, listening to it on like 1.5 or whatever, like 10 hours. I listened to it in a single day. because it was so good. Yeah. So this book that I read, I actually finished it for a reading blog that I had started, and I'm still doing it. This is why I like kind of like have a hard time with TBRs. I feel like some people, they can like have a TBR and they might know they want to read like 5 or 6 different books, but they already might read like 10 to 20 books a month. So they're like, oh, this is what I want to read in addition to every other thing that, you know, I kind of stumble upon and read. So for this book, I'm reading 5 different books that I read in 2020. They didn't have to be like 5 stars or anything, but they were just the books that I remember from 2020. And one of them is What Lies Between Us by John Mars. I listened to that on audio because I actually had it on Audible in 2020, and I think so long as you keep your account, which I still have mine, then, you know, you'll always have the book. And so I was able to listen to that one. I gave it 5 stars again, I think. Yeah, it's just good. It just held up. It was just like a real quality. I don't even think it's a thriller. It's definitely not like a mystery. Everything's like pretty much, there's like twists and turns, but it's like the circumstances are already like really dark. So it's just like, okay, but you know, why? And it's interesting kind of like what you'll forget from something that you've read. There's like growing up, there would be like a handful of books that I would reread. I actually haven't reread anything since, like, I just started rereading with this reading blog that I'm trying to film. And yeah, it's just interesting kind of like what you'll kind of remember. There's like pieces that I remember that I look back as I reread it, I'm like, oh, that wasn't actually a big moment, and there's like a huge reason why that might have happened. But yeah, I give it 5 stars. We'll probably talk about what it's about. So it is about a mother and a daughter who are living together, and the daughter, you know, goes to work at a library and everything like that, and she lives with her mother who lives at home, and she has her mom chained up in an upstairs bedroom, and it goes back and forth as to why she has her mom chained up. And yeah, I don't know, I remember in 2020, I felt like I was like kind of picking sides. Now 2 years later, 2 years of growth, I'm like, okay, like y'all are both having issues, you're both having a hard time. But I give it 5 stars. John Mars is an excellent author. I'm really excited for his new book to come out in a couple of weeks. The last book that I read in September with my boyfriend, we actually listened to this on audio, is Marriage Be Hard by Kevin and Melissa Fredericks. So Kev on Stage, if you guys know, we more so listen to him on his podcast, Here's the Thing, with That Chick Angel. And so he's a comedian, and he's also married. So he wrote this book with his wife. Me and my boyfriend are like, you know, getting ready for marriage, all the things. And you know me, I like to read, so you know, it's like, let's listen and have a discussion, and it was good. Like I said, 5 stars, maybe 4.5. It was good. It was kind of neat to get to know Kev on Stage more and his personal life. You know, you listen to the podcast and it's like, oh, okay, you know, funny, you're laughing, and then he also shares the podcast with That Chick Angel, but then also someone else, and it's not extremely personal. It's pretty personal, but it's not extremely personal, and this was really personal because he and his wife really kind of talked about their marriage and just kind of different things that you need to question and ponder. And I thought it was good. I thought it was insightful. It's definitely not for everybody, but you know, if you are married or interested in marriage and you see value in getting married, or you'd like to be married one day, I think it's really interesting. Just kind of different things that you know, want to consider before you take that next step, or you know, are already in the steps and you're, you know, want to learn more, want to have more information. We thought it was really good. Yeah, that is all I have read in the past 3 months. Just 10 books, but they were pretty good. I really want to know what y'all have read in the past 3 months. What have y'all read in, what was it, quarter 3? Yeah, because we're in quarter 4 now. We're almost out of here, guys. 2022 is almost out. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.